Hey guys, welcome back to the Kliq channel. I just hit my mic because it's very close to me. We're here with another episode of the chat room. Today we have a special guest because he's kicked Ed off this episode.
Yeah, fuck that nerd. He's short. It wasn't
Uh,
very hard. It was like kicking a football.
Max, aka Comic Book Kid. So yeah. So in the comments say R.I.P. Brudez. He will be here in 6 months' time. Give or take, because he's not on the next one either, because I've got different plans for that one. So he has been pushed back because I wasn't feeling well at the end of Feb, which meant he got pushed back. And the Batman came out, which means I got to talk to Max about that. He's
Of
Comic Book
course,
Kid.
I take priority.
So Ed got kicked off of that one. And then in March, there's a big wrestling event called WrestleMania, which, as a channel that posts wrestling content, we kind of should do a podcast on. So goodbye for that one. So we'll see. If I get pushed back another time, somebody else comes up. Yeah,
Jesus
so
Christ.
we're with Max. Most of you guys probably know Max because I'm on a lot of his content, so you've probably seen his content because I'm on there. We're on the same amount of subs, so a bunch of you guys probably watch both of us as well. You want to talk a bit about yourself, Max?
Sure. What up, fellas? It's me, Comic Book Kid. Max, that is. Um, let's see. I'm I'm 19, going 20. I work 9 to 5. I like long walks on the beach. Um, I'm looking for someone to just to hold at night. Someone to make the demons quiet in my mind. Um, yeah, no, I generally I like making YouTube videos, obviously like I do, which I haven't in months. We'll get to that. We'll get to that. Um, I like writing, I like drawing, I like making web comics and stuff, and just regular comics, which we'll also get to. If you'd like to contact me, I guess follow my you can follow me on Instagram, sorry, that's what I'm trying to say. I have one for my YouTube and one for that's just like a public image. So I have MaxBonHR underscore, and I just have just comic book kid, same as my YouTube. Um, those are the main two places you can, I guess, contact me outside of this. Otherwise, just subscribe to my channel, and hopefully we'll get some juicy stuff out soon. But anyway, like Connor mentioned at the top of this, he's not brought me on here to talk about, how obviously great and amazing I am. Because you can see that. You know that. It's clear.
I'll
That's
be honest.
obvious.
I'll stop you for a second, Max. The line that really got me in that little introduction was 19 turning 20. Jesus, we are getting old.
Look at
Turning.
this.
I'm. Why is that?
Dude,
Okay.
I've got
Turning 20. Like, dang, we're getting old.
yeah, Connor, I've got 40 years left and then I'm on borrowed time. I think we've already established that.
It's
But
like.
no, listen, he didn't bring me here to talk about how old we're getting. He didn't bring me here to talk about how great I clearly am. You know, we didn't come here to talk about Ed's dying channel. Ed, disclaimer, we love you. We love your work. Minecraft PowerPoint is a cinematic masterpiece.
Yeah, you
Anyway,
should do more of them. I'm
we need
expecting a
more.
10-part series.
We did a Minecraft PowerPoint cinematic universe. Anyway, we're here to talk about the Batman. I got dressed up in my Nirvana shirt so we can play Something in the Way 600 times during this. Really boost up those Spotify ratings. Sorry, there's chips in my hand.
Yeah.
Well, let's start. Connor, you're the host. Start us off. What were your thoughts? Tell us your general spoilers, by the way.
Yeah, so there'll be spoilers in this, and also we're not going to go the most in depth of this because Max did tell me before anyone do his own kind of like breakdown on his channel. So
Which I might do, but we'll see.
yeah, we won't go as in depth as Max will in that video. So if you want to get more in depth, go to Max's channel, sub to him, wait for that video to come out in the next 6 months. So my kind of like general feeling about the movie was it was kind of I enjoyed I think the entire movie was quite good. I think it went on a bit too long for me. I think it probably could have ended half an hour or like 40 minutes earlier. Just being a bit over 2 hours. They didn't have to go all the way to three. Um, I kind of like Patterson as Batman and as Bruce Wayne. I kind of liked the story they had. I kind of like uh it felt like there was already story in that world, and we were just building upon it, which was quite nice. Um, and to me, it felt different to other kind of representations of Batman, especially in like recent times where you've got the Batman in Titans, which is a very old Batman that doesn't put the suit on like ever. And then you have Affleck in Justice League, which was like a very
Mm,
much I felt like a very older, not as old as Titans Batman, but an older Batman. This is kind of that younger Batman, but not like
yeah,
first beginning Batman. You don't have to go through the backstory. You have to go through his parents' death in this, which is
yeah, I get you.
like really good
Yeah.
part of it. But what about you?
Yeah, I was actually a really big fan. Honestly, I'm gonna say off the bat, it's probably my favorite Batman movie. That means a lot being a Batman fan. Even better than The Dark Knight. Someone finally beat it, in my opinion, at the very least. Um, so generally, I think that's a common criticism. I think just how long it was. Sorry. Um, but I think that's a fair one. I think, uh, while I think the time works for it because of the kind of story it's telling, it doesn't necessarily need to be as long as it was, but it other than one scene which we'll get to, I can't it's hard I'm kind of hard pressed to think of anything that you could that was like necessary to cut out, I suppose, or like doesn't add to the film, I guess. And I just think it's just that kind of film lengthwise. In terms of Pattinson as Batman, I think he was fantastic personally. I think he really pulls off that it really is a spiritual successor to comics like Batman Year One and even uh, well, mostly Batman Year One I want to say, but like it has that kind of vibes of I don't know, just that sort of earlier Batman. It's a nice new different interpretation. Pattinson is really great at playing this creepy rich guy who is just really weird on the outskirts. Because in real life, he's just this weird, creepy rich guy. That's kind of who he is. He played a vampire for years, and this is the first time I've actually believed that he is a vampire. Playing Bruce Wayne. um, but no, I think his take on this like Bruce that's just returned to Gotham, basically. Well, not just, but like he's basically just returned to Gotham. He's young, he's angry, and he's just still trying to like figure out what the hell Batman even is. Um, and at the same time, he hasn't even considered the Bruce Wayne side of things. So I think Bruce Wayne only really comes out into the public once during the whole film, and it's for a funeral. And it really shows that like they even talk about it in the film. It's like they really show, yeah, Bruce Wayne, he's there, I guess, but like right now, he's just Batman. Yeah, he's just the Batman. That's what he wants to do. He'll go and like be Bruce Wayne now and again if he absolutely needs to keep up appearances, but like otherwise, no, he just doesn't care. Um, yeah, I think it's just a really I think this that kind of really interesting film in that regard. I think it's a really cool performance. I love the bat suit. I love that even though he's like bulletproof for a bunch of it, as you see in the trailers and stuff, he still feels vulnerable. So like he can be overwhelmed. He can be like a shotgun is gonna put him down eventually. Um, I like sort of the little Easter eggs, I guess, to like the wider world that they haven't. Oh, not really Easter eggs, but like little bits and pieces about Gotham that make you just, like Connor said, you just kind of feel like there's already a story here, and we're just kind of seeing the rest of it unfold. Um, what was I saying? I like that
Easter eggs.
Gotham. Pardon?
You went Easter eggs not really the story.
Yeah, sorry. Um, but I think it's a Gotham it's a very different interpretation of like Batman and Gotham that we've seen um on the big screen recently. I like that he's more explicit about his no killing rule, um, and enforcing that with other people as well. Um, I think it's very different, like I just said, um, but it works in the sense that Gotham feels like it feels like a real place, like it's something where that could be real, but it doesn't end up just feeling like Chicago or New York, like it's its own place. And it also is its own character, like it was in the Burton films. So it has that nice middle ground, but like the best of both worlds of both the Tim Burton era Batman and the Nolan era Batman. That I just don't think, and I think Nolan was probably for me personally the better of those two, just in terms of how real the place feels. Because while Gotham was like a very much its own character, I guess in Tim Burton's films, it it always felt, I guess, to me like it's a set because of just how outlandish and like bizarre and like impossible everything was. Where here it's like everything's dark and gloomy and whatever. It's a bit cartoony, but it's still, you still feel like you could drive through here and just be like, oh, this is weird, you know. Um, pardon me. But then, as I was saying before, I think as well, I've seen a lot of people who are, I guess, more critical. This is mostly on Facebook, which don't use Facebook. It's a fucking cesspit. Um, but I think there's a lot of people on there who complain about how people are more open to this different interpretation of Batman than they were to say Snyder's interpretation. And I'm gonna set the record straight for that right now. It's a couple of reasons. One, this movie is good and made by a director who makes good films consistently. I love Batman vs Superman. I love his kind of Justice League, but they're not very good. I'm sorry. Like Batman vs Superman, especially, is inarguably not a good film. I love it, but it's fucking terrible, and his Batman sucks too as a Batman. Because here's the issue with that interpretation. If I can go on a little mini tangent, that Snyder's interpretation of Batman relies on you at the same time thinking, oh, this is the natural evolution of the Batman that we know and love, right? So you have to rely on your knowledge of that character to get this character. However, you also, at the same time, have to throw out everything you know and love about Batman to get behind this one because it's just a new interpretation. And you can't have your cake and eat it too. You know, you can't say at the same time, this is the same Batman from the comics, but just later on. And also, this is a different interpretation of the Batman from the comics that you know and love, right? Like, pick one. And you can do either one, but just do either one because it's, you have an inconsistent character, and now all you're left with is just like, he wanted a justification for why Batman would kill people and just not care about it, but he didn't put in the effort to establish that. Whereas in this case, this is an earlier Batman, obviously, and it's a different interpretation, but it's one with heavy basis on what we've already seen. So while it is a different interpretation, it's not one that's saying to disregard everything. It's one that's based off of the actual, character that you know and love. It's taking what we know about it, properly deconstructing, and not like just deconstructing to say, oh, to deflect criticism or whatever, but genuinely deconstructing this character, taking him back to his roots, to somewhere we can say, okay, you can see how we got from here to here, and this is the journey that we are going on, right? So instead of just like this outlandish, nonsense, inconsistent character, we have something we can get behind, something that's different, however, is also based like consistently in the writing and the story and the character that we actually know and love. Hence, making the character, not just adapting a completely different character, right? And yeah, I think for that reason, it really works as just an early Batman story. And that's one of my favorites because I really like a Batman who's like, you can see why he's the world's greatest detective and all that. But I think you kind of lose something in the later years when he gets to this sort of overpowered, prepared for everything stage that it's mostly the fanboys, but sometimes writers will buy into it as well. And while it can be fun, sometimes it gets old, and it's really refreshing to see a Batman who isn't prepared, who gets outsmarted sometimes, and who is like, things like that. Um, but yeah, I think just to sort of wrap up my thoughts, I think I don't really see any major flaws with the film personally. I've seen it twice, and obviously I'm a Batman fan, so I'm a little bit biased, but just generally, I really enjoyed it. I think it's great. What's not great though is this scene, and Connor knows what scene I'm talking about because I've already talked to it, and you probably know if you've seen the film. But right near the end, we go back to Arkham Asylum, where the Riddler is, bemoaning his failure as he would, and in the cell next to him happens to be everyone's favorite lovable clown prince of crime. Yay, the Joker's in it. And it's brief and whatever, but I think like the music's over the music is just overly like carnival creepy. It feels like I'm watching like a TV movie. All of a sudden, all the tension and just the drama from the rest of the film is just completely gone with this overdone music, this the fucking actual clown pun that he says to the Riddler. If it was edited better, it could have worked, but it also I just wish it wasn't there. I think Matt Reeves talked about how he had a different scene in mind where Batman would go to Arkham to talk to Joker to get an insight on this new Riddler character because this is supposed to be like also an earlier Joker who's like, yeah, he's a criminal and all that, but he's not like the Joker yet. He's just a guy who just happens to be the Joker. And I think that would have been better, honestly. I would have felt less teased and less like, oh fuck's sake, here we go. Would have felt less like that if they just shown like the scene where Batman's gone because then he has a purpose in the story. He's not just like an Easter egg, which he just ends up being. And I think a lot of people are super mad about it. I understand what Matt Reeves was trying to do, where he's more saying, well, it's not really sequel bait, because I don't really know if I want to use the Joker. It's just more that I want to establish that he exists and that Gotham's always brewing trouble. And I get that. But I think this other scene would have done that a lot better. Or you could have done it in different ways. You just like you've already flooded the whole city. We're kind of aware that there's trouble brewing. Like, I don't know. It just really rubbed me the wrong way. And I think on the second viewing, I hated it a lot more. I'm kind of coming around to it, I guess, but like understanding why it was there. But at the same time, I just really wish that it wasn't, like I've mentioned. And just to wrap up, I think the funniest part about it is that when I was watching it the first time, there was a couple who was there watching it, the same cinema. When that scene started, uh, they just got up and left the cinema. Like, oh, they're literally just like, can't go one fucking movie, and they just left. Shit was so funny.
I
Um,
remember
yeah,
watching that scene, and my head going through was like, "That's the Joker, right?" Like I wasn't hearing the music as much. I was just kind of listening. Like, that's. I think I was just hearing the music. I was like, "That's the," because they never explicitly say it's the Joker,
yeah,
but it immediately I went, "That's the Joker, isn't it?" And I spent like that entire scene going, "Pretty sure that's the Joker. That's surely the
mm,
Joker, right?" And then at the
yep,
end when they're laughing, I'm like, "Yeah, it's the Joker." Okay.
hmm
And it is legitimately there to kind of go like, there is a Joker here, and I think it's
yeah,
also kind of there to go like, to tell the fans you might not get Joker in its own movie because Joker's already in Arkham.
yeah.
They kind of do the same thing a bit with Bane. I know you mentioned like Easter eggs earlier when an Easter egg is kind of like the Venom that you
Oh,
talked to
yeah.
me about him
That's actually
using.
something. I was actually wondering what your thoughts on that were, because I think you mentioned you didn't notice
I
that.
didn't notice it at first. I saw him doing it. I'm like, okay, that's what's that? And then kind of
Yeah, they
after
never
you told
say.
me, I was like, oh,
Yeah,
okay, yeah, that makes sense.
they never say it's Venom. For those who don't know, Venom is the drug that Bane uses. It's not the Black Goo Spider-Man fights. Different Venom. Venom the drug. Just for context, but Yeah, so I don't think they obviously never explicitly say that it is Venom because nobody would, nobody does say anything about it at all. Um, but I think I like that it happened. I was like, oh shit, okay, they're establishing Venom. That means we could get Bane. That means we could have that story arc where he gets addicted to Venom, which I think would be really cool to portray. I just think there's a lot of possibilities with that. I like that it really just really fucking went ham wild on that goon when he actually took it. Like, really shows that there's there's consequences to it, and I think it's nice to show that for a Batman who's so, I guess, unprepared, he's still even now is sort of worst case scenario, here's my last resort plan for this, which I think, I don't know, there's a lot to it, I guess, that I go to, and I just think that was really cool that it is there, personally.
Yeah, I remember when you told me that, and now like thinking about it more, I'm more like kind of skeptical that they are going to use Bane,
mm,
because the more I think about it, it's more like, okay, they're probably going to use Penguin. He's set up, and he'll probably not be the next film, but maybe the third. They have a
mm,
bit more Penguin.
yeah,
Penguin will probably come back. Riddler, I we might come back in the third alongside Joker if they want to do like an arc breakout. I
yeah,
don't. I feel like the Venom was there to kind of go. There is a Bane here, like it's
yeah.
kind of similar with the Joker. I don't. To me, looking more at them, I think it's like they probably won't use Bane. They'll probably use a villain they haven't had such a kind of like a big Easter egg for.
Um, Robert Pattinson wants to use Condiment King. I
I mean,
love it.
the
He literally
characters
said
you
in an
haven't.
interview, he said in an interview, he's my favorite supervillain. I just love the idea of a supervillain that just sprays ketchup and mustard on people. Just such a great villain. That's Robert Pattinson's biggest fear, just getting his shirt dirty, apparently.
Like for me, I think the next one's probably going to focus around a villain they haven't mentioned yet.
Mm.
Like I wouldn't mind.
I've heard some rumblings about Two-Face,
That's the
which
thing
I
I was
think,
gonna say. I would not be opposed if they did the next one, which is Penguin, and then Harvey Dent turning into Two Face.
yeah, see, I wouldn't like them to just do, I think if you're going to do Two-Face, you kind of have to show the events that make him Two Face, like because it's the way that he's always written is just so closely tied to Batman, and they kind of already did it in The Dark Knight, unfortunately. So it's going to be interesting to see how that happens. But like I mentioned, you kind of I feel like you lose a lot if you just have him as a completely separate villain who comes out of the
Yeah,
woodworks. You kind of have to show, yeah, he's connected to everything. Like Bruce Wayne was in the courtroom, or this is a case they were working on, whatever it is. And sure, people see it. Some people see it coming or whatever. But I just think there's a lot you can do.
yeah. I
I
see
think,
Two Face as either next movie in this universe or just not happening. Because I think either it will happen to replace the DA that was working for Falcone, because
yeah,
that entire section's gonna get everyone working for Falcone will probably get removed and replaced.
yeah,
So that's when I can see Harvey Dent coming in.
yeah,
If
for
not
sure.
Harvey Dent there, I don't think he'll probably be in it as
Yeah, I
Harvey
think I'm the
Dent.
same. I think if they don't bring in Harvey Dent next, it's gonna just not happen. I think Matt Reeves wants to do the Court of Owls he mentioned, but I think doing that next film would be a bit soon because he's already kind of just uncovered this secret plot that he didn't know about. You don't really want to do, oh,
Do
there's
another
also
one.
just another secret plot when he's just kind of getting on top of things. Although at the same time, that could work. I think either way it could work. I think Matt Reeves is a really good director. Um, so whatever he does, I have faith in him because I think he's a great director. I think the movie's great. I think most of his works are great. But yeah, that's just kind of my general vibes on it. Yeah, I guess if there's something else you wanted to add on,
Yeah, I was
you
gonna
mentioned.
say with like all those potential villains, it's kind of a thing with like when is kind of like the thing with this Batman's there's so many possibilities, and then when we look at like Snyder's like Justice League, is there going to be a stage kind of comparing the Justice League movies to what this Batman could have actually turned out to be? Is there going to be a stage where there's too many villains introduced into that Batman world? Because if you think
Mm,
about it, they did Penguin, Falcone, Catwoman, Riddler. They had the Joker talking there, the mention of Bane. That's six,
yeah,
I think, and that's
thereabouts.
all in the one film. So like, and Justice
Yeah,
League is
how
like
long?
is seven heroes, and that we've seen those movies kind of. It's hard to build those characters, and I
Mm,
don't think it will have the same problem in this like universe because if they do just a few villains each time, you can't build them out. Like, is there going to be a stage where it's going to feel too much because
yeah,
they're putting too many?
I think they've mentioned this universe is just going to be completely disconnected, and it seems honestly DC might just be scrapping quietly scrapping the whole connected universe thing. Like they'll still make the movies and whatever, but they'll just like quietly peter out. I have a feeling, and there's a lot of theories that, but the Flash might just be like a hard reset on everything because they're just gonna jump right in and do Flashpoint, despite the fact that he's appeared in four properties so far. That's not counting. Um, that's counting both Justice Leagues as one because there actually isn't. Let's see, because he was in Suicide Squad, he was in Justice League, and he was in Peacemaker, and the Flash will be his fourth.
Well, he was in
Not
the
counting.
Flash TV show as well.
He was, so that's five. Five and six if you count both Justice Leagues separately, which I guess you should. So six properties total. But even still, he hasn't like three of those are cameos. Yeah, three of those are cameos. One of them is a director's cut that isn't canon. And so he's really been in one property majorly. So we don't know this character, but even that doesn't really matter. The point is, I think they're just gonna do probably a hard reset. I've heard that they're going with like a Supergirl, Shazam, Justice League going forward, which yeah, fair enough. But I think they've just kind of seen like this isn't working out. Let's just scrap it. Which like fair enough, I guess. I just wish they'd put in some more care into the whole thing. You didn't have
That's
to do.
yeah. The thing is, if they put in the effort that we've kind
If
of
they put in
seen
the
the
effort
MCU,
to
like the
make,
MCU is such a big example. Like there's so much effort's been put into that. You can even tell now they're still thinking about everything to proceed. And it's like
and like
DC
no one
never felt
gave a
like they did that.
yeah. DC had. Here's the thing: no one really gave a shit about Iron Man or Captain America. Like they weren't unpopular, but they were just kind of like, oh yeah, there's those guys over there too. But like, they never held a candle to anyone like Batman and Superman or anything like that. DC has this gold mine of beloved characters like everyone loves. Marvel didn't even have Spider Man, who was like, is even the studios were like, yeah, this is the hero. They didn't have, sorry, they didn't have Spider Man. They didn't have the Avengers. They didn't have the Fantastic Four. Any of that. And then DC had everybody because they somehow made better financial decisions. Can you imagine DC making better financial decisions than Marvel today? Um, but like no, they had all this wealth of characters, and I guess that allowed them to take the risk. I suppose. Like I guess that's why they could make something. Let Zack Snyder tell his like dark. That's the thing about the dark. You can pretty much loop everything back to all the Batman films because every Batman film, sorry, just wanted to made money, and the studios and all everybody who saw it was like that made money because it was dark and edgy and cool. It's the same shit that happened in the 90s. No, they made money because they were good films and because they had Batman attached to it. These like that's people liked sorry, they made money because they had characters attached to them, but they were beloved because they were good movies, right? Like I love Man of Steel. I think it's a great film, honestly. I know I'm alone. I'm pretty alone in that opinion because I understand how criticized it is, but I really like it. But at the same time, it continues that trend. Which it's fine to start with one dark Superman movie if that's how you want to go. So I think there's a lot of aspects where like shit can be kind of dark. Um, and it kind of goes too far sometimes, I guess. But like I said, it's still fits within that frameworks. And but like when every single movie you make after that is like that, are we gonna get a Plastic Man movie where he was like
Dark
sexually
Plastic
assaulted
Man.
in is Plastic Man gonna get sexually assaulted in prison, right? Is that how we're starting off with this shit? Like, there's a point where it's just too much. And that's how muddled fucking Batman vs Superman was, right? Like, there was no contrast. Everyone was dark and broody and edgy. Like, how are we supposed to look up to Superman if he's just like super angsty and edgy and doesn't even act like he wants to save people anymore because everyone like how are we supposed to connect to the common people who are like, oh, this super powered alien is saving lives, but he's kind of weird, so I don't like him. You know how we look supposed to look up to Batman, who is like, yeah, I've given up on people. I'm just gonna kill people. Like, when did you have faith in people? We never saw that. Who are you? Why are you shooting me? You know, now you're dead because Batman killed you. Batman killed you. That's a whole thing, right? But it's
Yeah.
just like, who's you supposed to connect to here? Because if the world isn't so fucking gloomy, Zach. I'm just telling you. Like, yeah, shit sucks sometimes, but there's sunshine, there's rainbows, there's children who laugh and smile and play, right? Then there's violence and movies and sex on TV and all that. But there are those good old fashioned values that we used to.
Oh god. Do you think
I'm
one of the
sorry.
reasons why
Sorry.
the DCU didn't work, like why it won't work at least for the moment, is because the fact that they have the names that will just sell. They don't have to. Like, well, I think one of the reasons why the MCU works so well is because Marvel had to do
They had to
something
try.
to
Yeah.
get their movies to getting to those high prices, those high box office. DC could just go Batman, 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 and they'll be making the same amount.
Yeah, I think that's a big. I think that is a big thing that people don't really consider. Like they say, "Oh yeah, these DC movies they're so shit or whatever." Like here's the thing, you're always seeing them, and that's not like a criticism on the people or anything, right? Like you should want to go see a Batman movie or a Superman movie, whatever, right? Because these are beloved characters. But it's like you were saying, they don't have to try as much because they're Batman and Superman. They're gonna get butts and seats like and even the lesser known characters because they're connected to DC property are still going to get butts and seats. I think people were really skeptical about like Shazam for a bit, only because he's a little bit lesser known. But even in that regard, they had to try to do something like different and fun with him, which is why that movie's so good. Even Aquaman is like super loved because everybody knows Aquaman is like the funny meme superhero, and they basically just leaned hard into the meme, but in the
Yeah.
opposite direction. They were like, all right, Aquaman's like a loser. So let's just make him like the coolest, edgiest, bearded guy you've ever seen, right? Let's get the guy from Game of Thrones. We'll make him Aquaman. And it's like, what the fuck are you people doing? So people are thinking that's ridiculous, and that's why Aquaman sold well. Wonder Woman was Wonder Woman. Of course, that was going to do well. Which is the
Remember, the
thing.
trilogy was going to do well. So Batman,
Yeah,
Superman, Wonder Woman.
yeah.
It didn't matter what
Wonder
story or anything.
I
It's
think I
just
think
doing well.
Wonder Woman was the only even slightly risky one, and that's only because it's a female-led superhero movie. And those have been like notoriously like underperforming for decades because Elektra and Catwoman were fucking terrible. Like, they were so bad. But those didn't so well because they were terrible, not because they were female-led superhero
Yeah.
movies. But that's not. No, the point I was making is that you're right. They have these characters, and they feel like they just don't have to try as hard. I guess is what it seems like. But at the same time, they're also trying to make everybody fit into this mold, this like dark, edgy, grounded, realistic look. And like even the MCU movies get very samey, and that's I think a problem that you get with a cinematic universe in in that regard is that everything starts to become kind of samey. Like when you think of Marvel movies, all of them are super different, but they all kind of boil down to like there's dark scenes and whatever, but they're all like lighthearted and like jovial. Everyone's making quips every few seconds. There's memes about it all over the internet, and that's not a bad thing in itself. But you lose a lot of that variety, which I think is a genuine, it's a genuinely fine criticism. But at the same time, at the very least, when things are lighthearted, you can have more diversity within that. When you get like how you what are you gonna do with Superman if he's like if you just make him Batman with superpowers, right? Uh, you don't have a lot to work with there because they're just so fundamentally different. Making Superman brooding and dark, or Wonder Woman brooding and dark, and Aquaman and the Flash and all that brooding and dark. Maybe Cyborg works because his backstory is pretty miserable. Let's be fair, but like all these characters, just making them brooding and dark, it doesn't work because they're not like that. They're Everyone starts to feel like the same character, you know?
I think I'll take. I can't remember much of Justice League, but I think I remember the Flash not being as. He didn't feel as dark to me as the rest of them.
Hmm. That's why
But
he's everyone's favorite. Sorry,
I
yeah.
think he was also like portrayed as like a 16-year-old. I think
Yeah,
from my memory, it felt like he was a 16-year-old kid, even though he looked like he was 27.
yeah, it's like that's why he was everyone's favorite character because he was the only one who actually made jokes and like was lighthearted and acted like there was a world to save. He's the only one who cared, put in an effort. But like even then, he was some people's most annoying character because of that same reason.
Yeah,
But I'm like, guys, you
it's the
liked him
Flash.
because like, he was different. He has to be. Someone had to be. And it's like, and you're right. They did portray him like he was like a child, like an idiot. Like I, I'm autistic for people who don't know. So even then, I kind of saw like autistic traits, but I think the filmmakers really just went like, oh, he has super speed. Let's just give him ADD, right? So let's just do that because that's easy. Like, oh,
Yeah,
look, he can't concentrate because he has super speed. Oh, whatever. And I guess it can work, but at the same time, it's like, yeah, he was such a breath of fresh air. But even then, it's like cigarette smoke in a polluted world. Of course, a cigarette's gonna feel better if you're breathing in black smog every single day.
yeah. I think like with Flash as well. It's like for me, the way I would see Flash is you could make the Flash like. I think the representation of Flash was decent. I think it was good. You can have him as this like annoying kid. If you're doing, I think maybe like Wally West instead of Barry Allen,
Yeah.
because Barry was always. I always felt like Barry was portrayed as a lot old. Like he felt a lot older in the way he was portraying. Flash was a bit more older, and Wally I think was a bit more of that younger
Hmm.
acting Flash.
Yeah.
And I think they kind of looked when Barry's the bigger name, the more recognizable name, but Wally's the character we want. So they kind of did Wally's character but on Barry Allen.
I
And then
think it's
because it was such a big difference,
mm,
the character was so
but
beloved because it was so different, but it was also hated because it was just so annoying. You need that. Like if Superman was in between the two of like all the dark and edgy and the Flash, annoying kid, and was like that bright light, then it would have. I think people wouldn't have been as annoyed at Flash because I had this other character that could like reel Flash back in and kind
yeah,
of not have Flash be as far away, and then also kind of have all the heroes a bit more closer together instead of having this one wild out there, which is the Flash, and then have all of them over there being very dark.
yeah. Like that's what makes the Justice League so fun. Just their individual dynamic. That's what makes any team so fun. Like Superman being not necessarily the leader, but the figurehead, the spokesperson, right? Like he's not quite like he's like the one everybody looks up to, and he's the one who reels everybody back into the real world when things get out of hand. So if Flash is running off and like being crazy, he reels him back into the. But with Batman's being like too dark or whatever, he's like, hey, buddy, why don't you chill out here? Here's a batsicle. It's a Batman ice cream. Go sit over there and go brood over there. He's got vengeance. If what I don't know if there's not much you can do with Wonder Woman to be fair, but it'd be like, hey buddy, I know how it is. You have to leave your home. shit's tough. And she's like, what do you know? It's like, oh, my planet blew up. I moved to the city. It's a whole thing. And she's like, oh yeah, fair enough. But you get what I mean. Where it's
Yeah,
like, but everybody has that kind of dynamic where like they all make each other better because of how they interact with each other. And that's where the fun of it comes in.
yeah. I think
And
yeah,
yeah, now just to make everything so dark and depressing just takes away so much of that dynamic. Like if we were all the same on like the podcast even, they wouldn't really be interesting to watch if it's just like a bunch of people who all agree on everything 100% and have the exact same points and just say the same shit. Then what are you
yeah,
watching? Just go watch one of our channels, right?
yeah.
Yeah,
I remember watching, like, I know you didn't like the later seasons of Arrow, but like the Arrowverse trilogy, the not trilogy, the what's the I forgot what the you know what Batman Superman Wonder Woman, the is it called trilogy?
Trinity,
Trinity.
Trinity.
Their like trinity of Flash, Arrow, and Supergirl, I think was probably a bit more towards what you would want, which is Arrow
Yeah,
was Batman, which was a darker, especially like early Arrow. I think the Batman was a
I
bit
can
more,
I think I
and
can
like season
summarize what
two,
you're
three.
trying to say. It's there was earned, I think, their Trinity. Like they put in their work and effort for it. Hang on, sorry.
Yeah, they put in the work and effort, and then they were also Arrow was a darker character, and then Flash was this bright character, and Supergirl was this bright character, but wasn't as bright as Flash, but not as dark as like Arrow.
Yeah,
They kind of grew and they changed. You could tell those differences between, especially if you look at Arrow early, and then in the Trinity episodes, there's a different. You can tell that there's a change, and it's like
yeah,
in the Justice League, you can't really get that because they're all the same. They're all dark and gritty, and you only have that one, and you don't have that time to have those characters change because you're doing one film with them and then ditching
yeah,
the universe.
yeah. Um, on that, just to sort of, 'cause I think you wanted to talk about the comics itself, but this will be a good segue. I think. Obviously, the Batman film takes heavy inspiration from
Year
comics
one,
like the year not Earth one, sorry,
oh,
because
yeah,
there's year one as well, definitely, but I think more so Earth one, especially when you see Alfred. If you read volume one of that, I definitely recommend that because that's really good. But if you read volume one, you'll really see like yeah, this is 100% where they got the inspiration from like Alfred and even this version of Batman. But yeah, so you watch you read that and in that universe is like all these different heroes exist and they're all in the same universe but they're kind of like doing their own thing, I guess. Like there's Batman there and then there's Superman having his own little Earth One crisis, not crisis but like
yeah,
internally.
and
Wonder
story.
Woman's doing her own thing, the Teen Titans, Green Lantern. I think there's a Flash. No, I don't think there is actually. There might be. I'm not sure. But like yeah, there's just all these heroes. I think something like that could be a lot more interesting because we've seen the like all the origins and like the timeline film go along. I think it'd be really interesting to just see like a series of films where it's just different filmmakers being able to do their own interpretation um of these classic heroes, which is what Earth One was all about. Well, just doing all this, but they just all exist in the same universe. So like if you really wanted to, you could do a crossover. And then you don't have to build it up. It's just like, yeah, they just exist. This is just a person in this world, right? Like, oh, where's Batman? Oh, he's just over there. You gonna say hi? Nah, he's busy. He's fighting the Riddler. Oh, where's the Superman? He's over there. What's he doing? Oh, he's fighting Brainiac or Lex Luthor or whatever. Like, yeah, okay, cool. But like, they're just there, and you don't need to
Yeah,
explain like, oh wait, how is this happening or whatever. I think Matt Reeves has said that like, if Superman was introduced into his world, it'd be a lot later down the line, and it would open up a whole can of worms of like, oh no, everything's possible, and this grounded universe I've made is broken or whatever. But I don't know. I think you could still make it work. So I think he's described it as a world. It's like, oh yeah, if Superman was there, it would just freak everybody out. Everything would change, right? And I think that could work. And I'd like to see, personally, just that. Like even if it's after all the Matt Reeves stuff is done, just be like, oh hey, there's a Superman now. Okay.
I wouldn't mind kind of that is how he ends his Batman. Like how many movies he has on it, maybe that's how he ends it to kind of get to maybe help DC and DC can then do a Superman movie to just get that bumped up a bit. Kind of like, oh, Superman was
Hmm,
Batman. Go watch the
yeah.
Superman movie. And it doesn't have to have anything be involved with Batman, but it's like it could be a nice thing to go like this. His world, his universe of DC ends with with Superman appearing, and then it's up
Yeah.
to your interpretation what happens next.
Yeah, exactly. Something like that would be really. It'd be nice. It'd be a different way to do a cinematic universe. And yeah, I think that'd be really cool. Now, you said before we started this, you had some like thoughts on comics in general you want to talk about.
Did I? Oh, let me look at my stuff. I have nothing written, so I can't remember what I was talking about. So, like with comics, I gotta try to remember what I was thinking about. Um,
Okay.
like we had this big talk about the cinematic universe. What's comics? Oh god, what was I thinking about?
You know what it was? I think we talked about it. We were like,
Man,
let's talk about the cinematic universe and then go into comics. And then we spent like 30 minutes to like hours talking about cinematic universes and then saying, yeah, we can look this back to comics.
also, but I'll go behind the curtain. The idea for this was we'll do like 10, 15 minutes on Batman. We did about that. Then we'll do DCU for probably 10, 20 minutes. But we combined that with MCU, so just did those two in like half an hour together.
That's fine.
Um,
I think when you talk about the DCE, you have to
you
talk
have
about
to
the
bring it up,
MCU
yeah.
because just because of how obviously intertwined they are, and that it's honestly unfortunate because I think that they're so distinct styles and distinct companies that you should be able to evoke one without saying, "Oh yeah, this is like Marvel or whatever." It's like, you know what I mean? But just because of the way they've botched it, you have to.
That's the thing, yeah. I think it's because the way they botched it is the biggest thing. I do want
Hmm.
to say, do you guys want to see Max do his own DCEU? Tell him in the comments. If we get enough comments, I reckon he'll do one as a video.
I'll do a whole cinematic universe.
Yeah,
Fuck, all right.
for DC,
You
I
want
reckon you could do that.
you want to be Bane?
No, I don't mean like you have to make the films, but I mean like lay out the
Maybe.
plan for it.
Look, maybe. Um, yeah,
Because you would have all those
I'll still
comments that they're
cast
all
you
fucking
as
do.
I'll
I'll
still
still be
cast you
vain.
as Bane. Um, if that's something you want to talk about, just like our general content, I think the directions we want to go in. Yeah. So I guess uh, I've got a lot on my mind for this one. So if you want to start, how long have we been talking, by the way?
Only 50 minutes. So it's a shorter one
Okay,
so
so
far. So you
okay,
want to
that's fine.
move straight into YouTube and just skip over comics, or
I think we can come back to it because my
come back?
comics will become a part of it when I sort of get to that part when I talk about my content. But it's
All
like
right.
I have a lot, I guess, for this one. So if you want to start off, if you have less to say,
Yeah, I can start with
or we
some
can
of
just
the
jump
stuff
in.
that's coming from my YouTube. It's like with all my YouTube now, it's trying to figure out what I can do that is sustainable in a sense.
Hmm.
Because I've got the Brand Warp stuff that did well, but I haven't uploaded that in a month because the way I edit it, it takes to edit those, even though they're 10, 20 minutes for you guys to watch, it takes me sometimes up to an hour to edit. And then I also go through all the back stuff to make sure the stats and stuff are right. And like we've got me, Jason, Jack have got like up to like episode 12 or something recorded. Actually, I think it's up to 14 because we've done our first signings now.
Not
But
to
it's
mention editing half of my content.
recording all your
Recording,
content.
recording. Sorry, recording.
Um,
I edit it.
and then like it's also like that takes me an hour. I then have to do all my uni stuff, which takes so much time at the moment because I'm a bit more like heavy into that. Then all this stuff with hanging out with you guys, the podcast, um,
Mhm.
which I'm happy I don't have to edit because
Yeah,
that'll be a struggle with all the stuff I've got to do at the moment. But with like with
yeah.
my content stuff, it's kind of I've got ideas on what I want to do, but it's like uh the only stuff
It's
that's
about.
done consistently well on my channel as well as the TW stuff, but that's the stuff that takes the longest to edit.
Mm,
Um I'm doing more Valorant stuff now just because I can just quickly get through and cut stuff and speed stuff up.
Yeah.
Um, and kind of having the fan band tournament happening last week as of time recording this, that kind of and having to send like clips in for that, it kind of made me go, okay, I need to do some Valorant posting, and it kind of gave me a reason to do it. It's like even if it doesn't do well view wise, it's going to be on a tournament thing for a trailer, so it's going to be worth it in that sense.
Mm.
And it kind of refueled my, I wouldn't say love of coloring editing, because I don't love it. It refueled my like willingness to edit it,
Mm.
because editing Valorant is like very annoying because even playing the game, I get quite annoyed just playing it. So it's like
You got
having
annoyed playing Valorant? What? No way.
um like going
That's so
back
shitty. I'm
and
sorry.
having and having to like go back and see the stuff I'm like, oh, that was bad. That was bad. Like sometimes I can find it hilarious, like in the montage where I did 30 bullets for one kill. That was funny. It's like it's also like I don't know if that's where I wanted to go because it doesn't do well. Like for me, TW is where I want to go, the fantasy booking's where I want to go, and this is where I want to go. But the problem is these will take up to like 4 hours to do everything.
Mm.
Like including thumbnails, including like writing descriptions, including recording and editing. Some of those videos, the ones I really like doing, take like 6, 7 hours.
Mm. Sure.
And
I
it's like,
think
is it worth
I
that
think
amount
I
of
get
effort?
I think a lot of us have the same sort of issue. Like not just you and me. I think I don't know specifically
I'll
how
debate this.
Ed and Bilal, because I think they kind of make they've kind of been making consistent content since they started generally. Um, in my like it's all like
Ed
it's
hops on every three
relative,
months.
but
Ed hops on every 3 months, uploads 2 videos, and leaves.
no, I don't mean like schedule wise. I mean like type of content.
Yeah,
Like yeah, like so they don't really have like well, I think I've mentioned this to you before. I think we both had this discussion where like I think we're both sort of still trying to despite being like the most subscribed, we're still both trying to figure out like what it is this YouTube thing is going to turn into, or we want it to turn into. Um, I think for someone like Jace, it's very much more just like, oh yeah, it's just kind of there. I upload sometimes, but I'm more a YouTuber, so that I can record a podcast with my friends, you
yeah.
know.
I
But
think the other thing with like our two types of stuff is like our views, I feel like go drastically up and down
yeah,
depending on that content. And like I've said this to Bilal, and I've said it like in a call with like you, Ed, and Bilal. It's like Bilal can upload wherever he wants. It feels like, and he will get like minimum 50 views. And
yeah,
it's like that's something that neither one of us have. That like even Ed's is like consistent. Like Ed will get consistent views. Like it's not at the level
yeah.
Bilal's consistent, but like he'll still get it. Yeah. Like I've had videos that have gone like my Valorant stuff. I've had this the montage I put up is like my third Valorant video out of the 28 or something I've done. That's reached
Mhm.
double figures. And
Yeah.
it's like my first one is the highest like 27, and then this one's like third at 12. And it's like I don't know what like I didn't change much from my initial stuff until now. And like even my TW stuff, it's like I went from doing 20 views to doing like 100 on like an episode one. And it's like I haven't changed anything really about my content between that. It's just for some reason it's clicked on more.
Yeah. I think it's I'm not really sure. I suppose why things do better is just sort of like see, I think you especially are more in tune with like what does better, I guess. And I think for me, I think generally I'm just less serious about the whole YouTube thing as like a sort of career or anything like that, if that makes sense. Not to say that like you're banking on yeah, weird. It it started off better in my head, but now it sounds like a now every time I try to
You're
elaborate, it's
doing it
like
as a your YouTube is like a passion project. While
yeah,
like I the way you
but
see
you want
like me
something
looking
more
at it,
from
it's
it, I
like
think.
Yeah, like my ideal thing would be like I would be doing this and I would be getting some kind of like monetary reward so that there's like this. It would also incentivize me to do more for it.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's what I'm trying to say. Like, where mine is more like just a side project for like the passion of it. Yours is like I that too, but also I want something from this, not just like for it to be there. And I think that's a lot of things. It's like I think that's generally the way I am with a lot of things where I'm like, I'll do a lot of passion related side projects, but mostly just because it's like something that I'm actually interested in doing. But sometimes like, yeah, I'd love to be rewarded monetarily for this, but it's like if I'm not enjoying it, why am I doing it? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that's just a big. And I think going off the whole demands thing, like you mentioned your schedule, and I think I'm sort of the same. Where like I haven't mentioned in a video yet because I haven't made one in a while, but I just started full time work. So I work 9 to 5 at a call center. So that's a lot to deal with already. And then I have to find time to pay bills and shit. I just moved house a little bit ago. I'm gonna have to move house relatively soon as well. And then I've got to make time for Dungeons and Dragons. I have to make time, for playing games with friends. We have the Valorant tournament, which is taking up a lot of time. So it's a lot of like balancing, making and keeping money, paying bills, and just finding the time to actually follow those passions, which can be a lot, I think, mentally. I'm sure you're aware. Um, but yeah, no, that's a big reason why I haven't like been uploading a lot recently. I keep posting on like my Instagram story on my channel page, just like, hey guys, like I'm gonna try get stuff out, but like it's gonna be late. And I've already said like a disclaimer, just saying like, hey, there's gonna be less content this year, like a lot less, because there's just no fucking way I'm gonna be able to balance all of that. Like because of the kind of projects that I'm working on. Like I'm trying to move into more like skit videos and more like long form content. So less like gaming, more like talking about comics, talking about people online, I suppose, and like you know the podcast and things like that, and like just sort of skits like that as well. Um, but yeah, just those kind of projects that like you mentioned that like you feel passionate about, you want to do, but just take a lot of time in editing, and they might not even get that many views, which can be really disheartening
Yeah.
sometimes. But like it's just that kind of thing. And YouTube's not something I want to give up on, obviously. I do enjoy making the videos and stuff. Like, I think the most fun that I end up having is when we play Jackbox together. And obviously, like, Jackbox is like, I don't upload everything we play. I think I have more fun in the videos we don't record. So the playthroughs we don't record, sorry, than the ones we do. But I still, my probably my favorite videos to make group wise. Um, but yeah, generally it's just like, yeah, I'm finding I'm fighting a lot of like mental fatigue, not even just like I guess technically it is depression symptoms, but it's like just feeling so drained. You're like, even when I do finally have time, I'm like, can I be bothered because I'm just like exhausted from everything else, right? And it's just a lot.
I
Um,
had that at the end of last year, I believe.
yeah,
COVID was ramping up. I was like locked down here by myself. Like I wasn't seeing anyone, so I was like in a really bad mental spot as well. Because for me, I need to
yeah.
be around people in person that I know decently regularly, and like
Yeah,
feel like I'm kind of free to do what I want. And I didn't have that during lockdown, and it kind of really was like mentally damaging
I
to
think
me.
I was the same with the lockdown as well. So I didn't get COVID, thankfully. I still haven't yet, but I was um I was a close contact, and so they had to move me to a separate room. So I didn't even have my old roommates. I just had like literally myself in this. fairly big room, but for a week, like for 2 weeks, it was just like nothing. Me and my like D&D stuff and my laptop and like a TV that didn't connect to the that didn't have remote. It didn't even have live TV anyway, so it was just a box wasting power basically. And it's just like literally there were points where I'm just like felt like I was going insane. I think I had the most ideas for like horror stories regarding isolation in that room than I've ever had in my entire life. Like I had this one really vivid dream where I was just in this room too, like the same room, but there was just no door for an exit. Like once I got in, the door was just gone. I'm like, and I think about like really quickly, I figured out that it was a dream, but I'm like, this will make a great story. Let's just go with it. That's all I remember about the dream, but I just remember like I don't know. It's just you feel like that's what it's like. Just days in this room are like technically the escape is right there, right? But like you can't leave. You I don't know. It's weird, but I just think with how you felt in lockdown, where you're saying you feel like you need to. I think I'm just you and I are very similar in that regard, but like we feel like we need that social interaction just to be around people to feel like we're not going fucking insane.
I
Um,
think one of the things I noticed, especially later that year when I went back to the farm, is like it doesn't have to be people. It has to be kind of something that gives me like physical attention. So like even
yeah,
dogs or like pets would do that to me. I think.
just some living thing. So like,
Yeah,
yeah,
like something that would kind of get like if I'm in a bad spot would like get me out of that bad spot. And like
mm,
for me to get out of bad spots is not like if you talk to me for like an hour and I'm in a bad spot, it might help, but the next day I'll probably be in the same spot because it just hasn't
yeah,
kind of registered. But yeah, like physical contact, physical touch and stuff does. Like it is more consistent.
yeah. I think that's the right. You go.
I was gonna go like, and that's one like I remember. I kind of, I think you kind of showed in my content when I wasn't that good mentally. It's like it was a lot of like not much effort put into it. Thumbnails weren't the greatest. Like I put no effort in because I was like I gotta do this. And I remember coming
Yeah,
back and I had this like not like new lease. It would be like a new lease on like videoing, like creating videos. It felt like the 2 3 months I spent away from it I needed to. Like I needed to spend that time away.
mm,
And I think that's kind of where I'm at now is again, it's like I kind of need to get a schedule that allows me to take some time away every now and then. And like I think that includes me taking time away of making videos, creating videos, and also just like playing games.
yeah,
Because it's such a big part of my life because I'm doing games as a uni degree. It's like the like 50 of the 52 weeks of the year I'm doing something with games. And it's like that's unhealthy for me to be doing that so much. Even though it's something like I love doing, it's like you get a
it
point
gets
where
too much.
it's too much. It's becoming like even like the I know there's probably fosters doing just like sports and stuff, but it's like you can't do the if you love playing like soccer, you can't do soccer every week the entire
Mm,
year because you're going to get drained out of liking soccer eventually.
yeah,
Like, and that's where I think my stuff with games is like if I do too much, like I was spending, including my game stuff for uni, I would probably be spending 10 hours a day on games.
I think that's what I love about comics so much. If we could finally bring it to that, um, I think we all have these sort of passions that eventually just kind of burn out if you do it too much, right? Um, I think, but for me, it's like my artistic passions are kind of the one consistent thing in my life where I just don't get that. Like, um, sorry, it's like so reading comics, writing comics, drawing comics, all of that just bring me this like sense of like peace and calm that I just don't get anywhere in my life. Like I've never felt stressed or like I had to finish a comic or like I um wasn't like I it was a requirement, even if it was like something I had to do for a video, for a class, or to return it for the library got all pissy at me or whatever. It's like I finished it because I wanted to finish it because like this is cool. I love the artwork and I love the story, right? And this is something that I want to do. And I think I'm just really lucky to have a passion like that just hasn't after almost 20 years straight of being passionate about art, that passion is still there. And after, my God, if I can, yeah, I just want to. I think this kind of illustrates. Give me 1 second. I'll grab it. Um, where is it? Uh, like, so for context, this wasn't the first comic I ever owned. It's this one. It's Batman, Superman, Sorcerer Kings. I don't know what volume it is. I don't think they did the volumes on these back then. Doesn't really matter. So basically, it wasn't the first comic I ever owned. So I used to have like a magazine for the Suicide, no, the Superhero Squad. Sorry, most of it, a single issue of a Deadpool comic, things like that, just now and again. But they always got lost or damaged or destroyed because I was a little kid and there were magazines, and I always got them when we went camping in the rain, right? So like they're not gonna last long. And then one day my older brother for my birthday gets me this, and this is the first single like volume comic I ever bought or ever got in my life, I think. And it's there's just this feeling I get every time I get a new comic. Like the other day, I just got Mr. Miracle by Tom King and Mitch Gerads, which is fantastic, by the way, so far. Um, yeah, there's I can read comics online. I can listen to them, watch videos on them, but there's just something so amazing about getting the physical thing because every single one, it feels like my older brother's coming to me for my birthday, and saying, "Hey, here's your first comic," right? And it's this amazing feeling that I get. Um, that sort of makes sense. I think
Yeah.
it's just amazing that to me, hearing, it's like I've had that experience with other passions, like with certain creative projects, with work, with art, with sport, anything like that. Even with video games as a concept, like these days, I don't think there's a video game that I consistently like playing. Um, I might upload Valorant content later. I might start playing it more. I am playing it more. Let it be known, I fucking hate Valorant so goddamn much. I fucking despise it. Like, every time I play it, I either feel bored, angry, or shitty. So I'm like, why do I keep playing this? But I play it because it's like the game we all play together. And that's fine. We all make the sacrifices there, right? Um, but I think just game but there's no real game today. Maybe like Dark Souls would be one. Elden Ring, if my computer could run it. um, maybe those two would be like the ones that kind of keep me going and passionate about games. But just as a concept, it gets so old really quickly to me recently. And I think comics and making comics and the art around it is just this passion that hasn't been sapped away. And I think that's why I've been a little bit skeptical, despite my name, to actually really lean so hard into it because I don't want comics to become just a job. Like I'd love to work in comics, but obviously, but like I don't want it to become just this thing that I have to do. Like I don't want to get to the point one day where I'm like doing my like fortnightly comic shop or whatever and buying a volume of a series I love and thinking, ugh, I have to read this before Thursday or whatever. Otherwise, I'm not going to get the inspiration, and Mister DC is going to fire me, right? I, I still want I want the for as long as it can happen. I want every comic I buy to feel like you know, getting Superman, Batman, Sorcerer Kings, and I can say for the better part of like, I want to say almost 10 years. I want to say a bit over a decade. Like I think I got this when I was 9, but I want to say for the better part of a decade, um, I've felt like that with every comic I've ever bought or ever been bought for me, and it's just amazing to me that that's still the case, and it's just something that just kind of keeps me just keeps me going with like the passions that I have around it, or just in general. You know what I mean? Just because yeah, I have this to fall back to. I can see you're trying to say something. Sorry. I'll let you talk.
Oh, good.
Sorry.
I was waiting for you to kind of end to do some more talking, but it's like, for me, like, I've been in comics kind of more consistently in probably 3 years, 4 years now. You got me into them probably, would have been 7 years ago, 8 years ago now. Been
Thereabouts. When how old have we known each
year
other? Year seven.
6.
Year six. That's right. So, and you would have got.
Would have
When
been
did
year
you get the?
6.
When did you get that Flash and Green Lantern comic? Because those are the ones.
Year 8 or 9.
So I reckon like a bit before then, I would have just non-stop bitched about comics to you, and then over time would have worn you down. So I'm gonna say,
I think
I reckon
year
around
6 or 7 you gave me a comic 3.
I did. What
That's
was it?
what it was a Batman, I think.
Of course it was. Um,
I think you had like 20 Batman. You're like, oh, read this one.
I think I remember that. I think I just remember like having
Because then
this
I
my
read
school bag full of Batman comics and just pulling one up and saying, "Oh my god, Connor, I need someone to talk about comics too. Here, read this. No, no, you can't read that one. You gotta read this one. Here, read
because
this, and then I'll give you the
yeah,
next one."
I think year 7 I read Blackest Night and Brightest Day.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Year 8 I think I bought Flash and Lantern.
Flashman
9,
is so good.
then from 9 till 12 I kind of just read every like occasional comic. Last year I bought like 3 issues of Nightwing. 2 issues of Nightwing? 2 issues of Nightwing, 1 issue of The Detective, I think.
I
And
think
reading a bunch.
I think there's a hardcover either out now or coming out soon for the Nightwing run. So if you're interested in that, you should get that. Um,
But I was gonna say, like, you mentioned during your 5-10 minute spiel of I think it was 5-10
sorry.
minutes. I was trying because what I'm going to do outside is I'm gonna do it like a tangent counter
Oh, fuck off.
for like both of us, and I'm expecting to be like in the 40s, 50s probably. I'm gonna feel like we got a lot. Yeah, yeah, I know. It's a funny tangent one because it's about the tangent count.
Sorry, continue.
Like, I think talking about comics, you were like, him creating comics in your 5-10 minute spiel. Like, so you came on here, you've done your website before this podcast, and I said that you were going to get like somewhat time to shout out. Do you want to talk about the comic that you have, well, released? I would say is the word released it on your website.
Published, like, really? I mean, I guess, yeah. So,
Published, released means same
doesn't
thing
matter.
basically.
There's one more. Yeah, so, yeah, I've been working on a horror comic that it's called Skin. That was kind of a working title for a while, but I think it just kind of fits pretty well into it. Um, it's based it the basic premise is that it's like a skinwalker invasion. It was based on the Native American creatures, but I've made the decision to kind of lean away from that influence as much as I can, just because like if you can't really get the first-hand experience, you're not really in a position to sensitively portray the stories. So while it has some bases, I think that the creatures are different enough that I can say that they're my own and not like present a culturally insensitive story.
I think
But
just to kind of go on to that monster points, like when I was going through the first issue, my thought when I saw the monster was like, oh, that looks like a Dead by Daylight character. Like,
God damn it!
I think, well, you could take that as negative or positive. I'm kind of thinking that as more of a positive because it means that it's good enough that my first thought was that it is in a published, like it would work in it was in a published game that
Mm,
like a million people have played.
fair
But then you can
enough.
also take it negative, like, oh, I thought it was from DVD. Because like
No, I get
I
that.
saw, it, I was like, oh, that reminds me of something from DVD, I think. So
Look, here's the thing. When I made the when I'd finished making it, when I like finished the whole first issue, I watched a video on Death Note. And I think, oh, Ryukyu looks so familiar. Oh, that's why. And then I read Batman Zero Year, and I'm like, oh, why does Doctor Death look so familiar? Oh, god damn it. So that kind of design,
it's common.
if yeah, if Connor wants to put like a image on screen of what it looked, it's kind of a spoiler, but not really. It's the first issue. It's bring you into it. Basically, the general rundown is my two characters,
Oh wait, before you do
Jean
the
and Demi.
rundown, hold on.
Sorry, yeah.
So before we kind of spoil a bit of it, if you do want to go through it before this, pause this video. Oh, hold on. Okay. Go down in the description or the comment on my comment. There will be a link to Max's website. Go onto the website, read through the comic, then come
Then
back
come
to
back.
this and continue the podcast.
Yeah, so there's only one issue now. The website's a little bit funky at the moment because I'm not a web developer or anything. I'm not adept at making websites. I just I did what I could with the limited resources that I had to that would make it like because I think I went on Wix and I went on Weebly and all that and nothing really felt user friendly for reading it. So this isn't amazing, but I think this is like better than the other options that I was presented with. But like I was saying, so the synopsis is basically there's our two main characters, federal agents Jean and Tim. Um, and after a routine arrest goes wrong, they find out that this person they've arrested was some kind of like deformed monster. Um, that was like incredibly hard to kill, and has been has the ability to steal people's skin and shapeshift into the person they steal the skin from. Um, and then at the end of the issue, this is where the spoiler comes in because it's kind of the hook of the story. At the end of the issue, Jean finds out that she is one of these things, and that the real Jean's been dead for an unknown amount of time, and she's been like wearing her skin for so long that she's forgotten and has thought that she was her for years. And so now this and so yeah, the whole story is basically how Tim and John like fight back against the monster. But the hook of like the rest of the series for now is like how is Jean gonna um convince everybody that there are more of these things without outing herself as one. And I think I don't know, I think the first issue I think has some pacing issues if I could be critical of myself. I think I think it just kind of goes along a bit fast at points. Because I think when you're drawing something out, you can feel the pacing in your head, and you pace things out a lot better than you would if you were reading it. So things tend to move a lot slower while you're drawing it, if that makes sense. Um, but generally, I think it establishes like the feelings that I wanted it to, which is that um, establishes one, there's this world of monsters, and these are just two regular people dealing with that. Two, Jean is one of these monsters, and how she's going to deal with that. And three, which is like the hook for the series, if she's one of them, that means that there's more, and what's going to happen from there. How many are there? Who is one already? Who can you trust? I've done a lot of design on the creatures itself. I've done a little bit of research into like similar styles of monsters, like I mentioned. Um, but yeah, I'm genuinely pretty excited. I think there's going to be a lot of like different changes as this series sort of evolves. I've done a whole bunch of covers that I'm really proud of already that I'm gonna use for different issues. to sort of like um set them all out, plan them out like that. Um, I have Connor listed as a letterer because I can't letter things. I don't know if he's going to continue to do that,
Who
but
knows?
maybe that would be cool because I my handwriting is not great, um, as mentioned. But as you can kind of see, um, but pretty much I've just like kind of talked to Connor. I'll be like, hey, um, what's this? What do you think of this? And then I'll get radio silence for like weeks until he goes like, hey,
It's
when are we filming the podcast next?
better than what it was a few years ago.
Oh my
Um,
god, that's a classic. That's um that's another tangent for the counter. But yeah, no,
well, it's
I'm
not that big. It's not a big tangent. Okay, I'll add that 'cause I'm doing a tangent on the tangent. So
yeah.
it's only
Um
big tangents. I'm adding. Yeah.
okay,
Otherwise,
fair enough.
otherwise it might be 1,000.
Fair enough.
We do a
But
lot.
but yeah, no, I think it's a cool idea. Obviously I think that, but I don't know. I think I've shown it to some of my work friends already because I just drew it all on my pad with my drawing pen. My touchscreen pen, sorry. I'm gonna upload it onto the website as well, I'm gonna upload it onto the website as it goes on. Something I am interested in doing, this is really early stages. I'm obviously gonna probably put more series up there as I make them, but at the same time, I think it'd be cool if, say, like someone else has their own, thing they're working on. So if by any chance you're working on something and it's like, hey, I kind of want to put this out into the world. Just shoot me a submission. I've got a submissions page on my website now, which is like just if you just go to the contact me page and say, "Hey, I've got a thing to send," or just send me an email, and the email that's listed on there, I'll either put on the submissions page if it's just like fan art that, or art you want to put up there, or if you want to actually, start publishing your own comic on there, you know, shoot me a message. I'll be like, hey, yeah, if you're serious about this, yeah, I'll look it over. If you got enough pages, I'll put it up because that'd be really cool. I think it'd be. I think there's a lot of places like Webtoon and well, that's what come to mind right now. But places like Webtoon which allow like creators to um put their series online. But I think if you're not like super adept with like file sizes and compression things like that like I am because I'm dumb, um if you're really new to publishing and like you don't really know um how to do it, if you just want to, if you don't really care that much about getting the exposure, I suppose, and you just want to kind of have your shit out there for someone to be able to read, I think it'd be really cool to be able to have the website be a place for that. So that's something you're interested in. Um, yeah, just go through the submissions page and just, yeah, shoot me a submission. Let me know because I'm really down for that. That'd be really cool.
Nice.
Oh,
So we've been going for an hour and 20 minutes.
yeah,
Now, initially
quick
we
one.
were going to talk about podcasting and kind of like the challenges and stuff we have with me organizing this one, Max being kind of the big organizer, main organizer of Big Talk. But I think I will just
We
end
kind
it here
I think we
because
kind of covered that thing in our other talk. If I can just, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. But I
they're
think
all good.
I think we kind of covered it when we talked about like our schedules and shit, right? Because we talked about the passion behind it and like how finding the time is a really big issue. I think just if I can just say briefly on it, the main problem with like running a podcast is just that there's
With
so
five
many of
people.
us. Yeah, 5 people. It's just that there's so many of us that it's hard to find the time and a topic that we're all okay with. Um, and
Yeah.
also with like life will just get in the way generally. But I think that's what I really want to say on that.
Yeah, we're trying to do a bit of. This is probably a bit of spoilers because the podcast one for last month hasn't gone up yet. And we're going to record this one for this month and whatever. Is like we're starting to. What Max and I talked about off air, not on YouTube, and just between us was moving away from kind of like the feeling of like mandatory 5 person big talks.
Yeah.
Um,
So we're gonna have more probably in the future where some of us just aren't there. Like there'll be ones where I'm not there for. Connor might not be there for a few. JC even, things like that. Where it's just like there'll be topics then we'll cover that people aren't super passionate about, or
It
like I
basically
think
allows us to be more. The each episode will be a bit different because you won't have all five of us every time, and
yeah,
it also allows us to cover more topics because like if we're going to talk about Valorant, Max isn't going to have like a massive say on that. If we're going to talk about
I
comics, then it's
it's gonna
probably
be
just me
me,
and
you,
Max. If
yeah.
we're going to talk about wrestling, it'll be me, Jason, maybe Max if we can get that video up.
Oh yeah, that's the thing.
It's like because we all have these different interests. It's like we need to figure out a way where we don't have to kind of force all five people to be somewhere they don't really want to be. And we
Yeah,
also have these stages where it's like Blow and I will not talk for the first hour of the Big Talk episode, and then we'll talk for the next hour. And it's kind of like it's not the way we kind of wanted to go, where it's like someone be quiet for 45 minutes, talk for 20 minutes, then quiet for 40 minutes.
yeah. We want it to feel more conversational, I suppose. I guess like this. I feel like this has been more conversational. That's one because there's two people, so it's
Yeah.
easier. But yeah, I think just generally, in terms of the podcast schedule, um, we're gonna try to get the next one out soon as we can. It's super late, I know, but like I've been saying, life's been life has slammed me on a table and has been raw dogging me for days straight. It hurts. Uh, but
Oh, I think
but
what
no,
makes
it's
that just for a second, I think what makes that episode worse is the fact that it's end of 2022, bro. 2021 awards, which was meant
oh
to
my
be
god,
recorded, I thought in December, then it was pushed back all the way to February, and that's coming out to March. It's just like, yep, we really have pushed this one as far back as we can.
it's so fucked. But look, it's just been really busy with timing and stuff. So just in general, I think yeah, we're gonna get that next one out as soon as possible. I'll be there for the Valorant one because I'm coaching
Yeah,
team name, which is the Valorant team. Um, After that though, I do have to say I'm not entirely sure that I'll be there for like the next few. So I'll still upload them on my channel. Like I'll probably edit them if I can. If not, Connor can edit them. But like,
yeah.
um, yeah, it'll generally be like I'll be absent for a couple of them while I sort of just try and get my shit together a bit more. I'm also working on that live action Sigma Male video like I mentioned earlier. Um, yeah, just that kind of deal.
Yeah, so we'll just end it with a bit more talk on the big talk thing just to kind of round it up, and then we'll talk a bit more about what's next for you, Max. But like, so as Max said, the next podcast is, and I said end of year awards 2021. The one after that will be us talking about the Fan Bam tournament, which we have been taking part in. We did round one last week. We're in round two now, and we'll be if we win this, we get finals the week after. After that, Max has a lot of stuff on his plate, so Jason and I will probably be taking more of the organizing stuff for the podcast. We'll also be trying to not do 2.5 hour long podcast anymore because it's
Mm. It
something
gets a
that
lot.
it's a lot to add. It's not. I don't know the view duration. I don't have access to max count, but the view duration won't be that high to my knowledge for it.
No, I'm gonna have a
A,
look.
it's a pain to kind of record because we'll sit there, we'll wait, we'll start at like 7 for instance, wait half an hour for everyone to show up and get ready, start recording at 8 o'clock somehow, even though we're already at 7:30, and then finish at like 10:30, talk for like another half an hour maybe, won't hop offline till like 11, and then it then goes to Matt. I've recorded, I sent it to Max, and like a week later, after like 20 hours of recording, it goes up, and it's
Yeah,
then still like an hour 50, 2 hours, and you don't get like even these chattering things don't have the mega watch time, because they are like an hour and a half. Hence, like when the big talk is an hour longer than that, it's not going to work out that well. So yeah, there are plans for new topics and stuff. If you guys have any more like topics, put them down in the comments. I will send them to the rest of the podcast members. See how we feel about them. Yeah. So
I'll
to
send it. I'll make it. I think I made a Google form a little bit ago, so I'll just put like podcast topic submissions. So if I can find that, I'll send the link to Connor to put that down there. It might just make things easier.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, sorry, you were saying before.
Yeah, so we'll end it here with kind of. So you talked about Sigma Mails, you talked about your new comics, talked about the podcast. What is. I said this to Bilal, I think I said it to Jace. What is your next kind of. I'll do this one because I think I said this to Bilal, not Jace. What is your kind of like dream video to release this year? If like you had basically if life was all good for you, everything was set, what is the number one video you would release this year? Like not in terms of like view count or view durations. Like what would you want to release this year that would go like, yes, I'm really happy with this. I'm glad I got it out.
I think. Well, I've already mentioned the Sigma video, but I think besides, so that'd probably be it. But I think besides that one, I'd love to get out like probably more like a list, like anything like majorly comic related, something like well edited with like some fun skits, similar to like that Warhammer video I made, but I think with just a bit more higher, especially volume quality, volume mixing. Sorry, um, something like that where it's like I give like a guide on a reading or it's kind of like something like how do I start reading this? I think probably that. I think if I could get that out, I'd just be happy to be like, wow, this is incredible. I'm so glad this exists now. Um, I'm really proud of this. It'd be even better if it got good views, because then I'd be like, but
And you would
Mets can't win
continue.
every game. Oh,
Uh,
actually, I think it might. It's a
um,
comic video. It might.
yeah, so what is. I'll do one more question to end it off. What is the outside the podcast, what is your next probable video that you will release? Do you have any ideas about what's kind of after the podcast? Or you kind of just like, you got the Sigma, you got the podcast, and then you kind of seeing what's life's going to throw at you. So you're going to get a few days off of that raw doggy or that raw style, whatever the fuck he said.
Jesus, Jesus Christ.
I don't know what he
It's
said. I
so
bet.
unsettling hearing you talk about sex stuff.
Yeah.
Um, Look, I think realistically, it's probably going to be another podcast. I think because that's just kind of like when there's nothing else, there's the podcast kind of thing. Um, Evidently that's not the case, but
Are you
but like
Can I just
I
interrupt
think
there for a
yeah,
second?
sorry,
Are
no,
you
go.
cautious a bit about having your channel revolve too much around the podcast? It kind of just becoming the Big
I
Talk
am I am a little.
channel
Honestly, I am a little, which is I don't know if I've mentioned, but I am considering
making
making like
its
a
own.
separate channel just to upload it there. But I guess the thing is the podcast is just like a consistent upload, or well, it's supposed to be. Which is why I like uploading it to my channel, just because of the consistency of it. But I think yeah, it is a little. I do get a little worried about being like he's just the podcast person. But in terms of like what's next, realistically, probably the podcast. But I think I'd like to do a video on the Batman that just came out, obviously.
Yeah,
I might actually start working on that comic video I just mentioned, but if not any of those, I think in the near future you can probably expect just like a some kind of video explaining where I've been, which I guess this kind of is, but at the same time, just
it's the one.
something more concrete and just more like on my own channel if people don't want to watch this
Yeah,
hour and a bit video, just like a quick video of like, hey, here's everything that's been going on. Here's why the uploads have been shit. And here's what I'm doing about it. Things like that. Um, just to sort of set. No, I don't want to say set the record straight 'cause it seems wrong, but like just to sort of explain what's been going on, I suppose. And I
yeah.
think that's probably where it's going to be.
Okay.
next. Yeah.
I keep on saying final question, but I keep on getting more questions based on your answers. Like,
Yeah.
so you were saying you were kind of cautious about you becoming the podcast channel. Do you think, are you more cautious than about uploading podcasts that you're not involved in, or you're more like it's kind of like free content in a sense?
That's a tough one.
Because like I can get it from both points in which it's like you got that consistent upload, but then because you're not
if
in
I'm
it
not in
and
it.
it's on your channel, does that then kind of take away from your channel, or does it kind of add to it that you're able to take a step away and still send out the content?
Yeah, that is something. I think that's a big reason as to why I just make sure to make it to every um episode no matter what, really. Like there'll be days where I'm just really not feeling it, I suppose, but I'm like, it's the podcast, I'm in it, and I don't wanna be like the other, just like the host or whatever. Like there are certain channels, I think, in certain podcasts and like certain, I think it's more akin to like Twitch, but something. I don't want to be the lover host guy. Is what I'm saying. Like I don't want to be like the guy who hosts lover host while who just like announces shit while Jay Schlatt and fucking Minx are like the actual content. Right. I'd
Yeah.
want to, but at the same time, I think uploading one now and again when I'm not there is fine because YouTubers do it all the time when like they're busy and like their friends will just like upload content for them. Like, hey, I couldn't upload a video, so I got my friend to do a thing, and I
Yeah.
might just have that like as like or see if I can add something there. Like, hey, Max couldn't make it to this one. Here's a video, right? Just to remind you, like, hey, he's still here. Um,
Mm.
so yeah, I think there's a few things. I think the podcast having its own channel would really take away from that um I guess anxiety. It's not super stress. It's not like always on my mind, but sometimes when I'm
But
thinking about it, it's like, yeah,
I think it'll become a bigger thing for you when we do more podcasts without you. But I think, especially at the moment, it's something that's kind of been a staple of your channel so far.
yeah. And I think
And I can see like the worry about, does my channel, is it hindered by having the podcast on it, or is it helped with the podcast? And you're going to be in
yeah,
that probably debate for a while because the podcast is like a decently consistent views for your channel. It's like if I move it to a different channel, is my channel going to suffer? Or is that new channel going
yeah.
to suffer? Like, what's the.
What's the payoff? What's the
Yeah.
trade-off there? And that's the thing that I think I'm a little bit worried about, but at the same time, it's kind of like, see, I don't the podcast is like, I think it's something I do for fun, not really for views, which is why we've talked about this before, but it's why I want to do, we all want to do shorter ones because the longer ones start to feel more like
A
work.
job. Yeah.
Yeah. But the shorter ones are just like a fun conversation. We film for a bit. We stop filming. We'll probably talk a bit more about it afterwards, and then we'll play. You guys will play Valorant, and
We'll
I'll
play
try
a
and like
game or we'll head off.
boot up Uno.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it's just that kind of thing.
Okay.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to it, a lot of thinking involved. Um, I think if it gets to the point, I think if I'm seeing that the podcast can kind of stand on its own without me, I might just move it over to its own separate channel. I've got like a bunch of just like backup channels that I could get access to again, that I'll just like boot up one and be like, hey, if you want to watch the podcast, go here because whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's just my general thoughts on
Okay.
all of that. I'm a little skeptical, but I think it'll be fine.
Right. Nice. So we are going to end it here this time
Finally.
at an hour 40. I think. Oh, let me
Fine.
just quickly in the video, another tangent here. Let me just grab up the past two ones. I believe
Didn't you
this
say
might
the
be
one
the
with Jace was
shortest.
supposed to be the one with Jace was supposed to be
The one with Jay
20
Smith be like,
minutes?
yeah, 20 to 40. So this is the longest one so far. We are
This one.
going. Yup. We are going straight up. We went an hour 17, an hour 23, an hour 40. We are going
Shit.
straight up.
Hey, this is
Next
a
one,
good
2 hours.
conversation, okay? I liked it. I had fun. I'm very glad that you brought me on. I've actually wanted to come on for ages. I think I've mentioned to you. I keep telling you like, hey, can I come on chat room?
I'll be
Can I come on?
honest. So
Can I come on?
you
Come
you
on, come on.
were penciled for this month anyway because I knew the band was coming
Mm-hmm.
out. And then
Mm.
when I forgot last month, I was like, ah, shit, what do I do now? Because do I just move Ed? Because I can't
Mm.
talk about the Batman. Yeah, I'll move
Mm.
Ed. And then I kind of forgot it was Mania. The next one, I'm like, ah, Ed's okay, moving down again. But like, the one next one will be about 10% of the length of WrestleMania itself. So that might actually be a decent version because it will talk about all of Mania in
Mm.
under 10% of the time. Yeah, you guys did enjoy this video, hit the like button, subscribe, comment down below some suggestions for either guests or topics for the Big Talk podcast. Go sub to Max. Go watch DJB underscore remix on Twitch for more of the Fan Bam tournament.
I
I'll
got
try
that
getting this
website.
up on Max's website, which will be in the description. But yeah, a lot of stuff to plug. We plugged 7, 8 things on the Fan Bam tournament interview. So yeah, we plug a bunch, but hopefully you guys enjoyed and see you
There's
next
a
time.
lot going on, guys. Anyway, I'll see
Yeah,
you later.
see you next
Grab
time.
that Jenny,
Peace.
guys. See you next week. Bye.